This
Um,
conference will now be recorded.
Great. So we'll be going for about our goal here is to go actually about 50 minutes. So we want to end Kim's discussion in that time. It's a lot of material, and so we'll do our best, and then I can do Q&A at the end. So we don't have to end, but for those who want to, okay. All right. So, welcome. My name is Dr. Helmut Lucero Love. Welcome to Financial Empowerment. We're here at the Gailey Impact talking about happiness and finances. What I want to ask you all, I think there is a chat. Is there a chat in this? Yes, there is. The top right corner, you'll see there's a chat. And I just want to ask you all, or you can say it out loud since this is a small crew. How many of you all have been stressed about money? Raise your hands or say me or put it in the chat.
Me,
Right? They do. They do. Just like me. How many have you gotten depressed about money? Raise your hand.
me.
Totally, right? So, okay, Leo's like a little bit. So, stressed or depressed about money is pretty common. The hard truth is that a lot about the way we treat money sometimes feels like how we're treating ourselves. We can be emotional with money. And if you're anything like me, sometimes I've avoided it, ignored it, I've been sloppy with it. I brought myself to tears with it. It is something that can be very emotional for people. And hello, Ginger. Welcome. We are recording just so you are aware. Welcome to the crew. But you're not alone in those feelings. We all have a lot of emotions that are built up around money. And honestly, I just want to tell you all that this is one of the founding principles around the Gailey Impact was to try to really help people break through their money barriers because it's a really important part of getting to express our power is having power over our money. So what we've done with the Gailey Impact is working together with WealthWave, a company that was founded by Tom Mathis, also here in Atlanta. He's a visionary who put together a whole series called the Money Books, which really teach people about how to use money. And today, we are so lucky to have Kim Schooler with us. Kim is a masterful leader in financial education. She wrote the book on how money works for women. She has completely dedicated herself to educating people all across the country and even the world around money and especially women and the ways that they are susceptible to it. So we're going to let her kick off our presentation. Kim?
Well, thank you so much, Helmut. It's really wonderful to meet you all and to be with you all tonight. And Helmut, thank you so much for putting all of this together. So, as Helmut mentioned, I co-wrote How Money Works for Women, Take Control or Lose It. My co-author was Sharon Lechter. Sharon co-wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki and 14 other books in the Rich Dad series. She actually served as president and CEO of the Rich Dad Companies for 10 years before leaving to collaborate with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, where she wrote Think and Grow Rich for Women, 3 Feet from Gold, and Outwitting the Devil, just to name a few of her New York Times bestselling books. She advised 2 U.S. presidents on financial literacy matters, and she works at the federal and state legislative levels to help make sure that personal finance is a required course, at least at the high school level. So I am going to share my screen. Okay, if I can. One second. I apologize for this.
No worries. This is our first time sharing on this platform, so we're learning, right, Kim?
Yes, we are. It's making me go to system preferences
Okay.
and to turn on screen recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, as Kim figures that part out, I did want to let you all know that the reason that financial education is so important in general is clear because there's so many people affected. But I wanted to share with you all that um, particularly groups like women, but also the LGBTQ community are quite impacted by financial literacy because of inequalities in just a simple thing of like making money, right? So you see that Latinx or Black members of the community are paid whereas women are paid 82 cents to the dollar. Those groups are paid 72 and 70% to the dollar. If you're a trans person, it's 60 cents to the dollar. So you can imagine over your whole life of a person um, in those kind of identities, right? You're already making like 60% of what your white counterpart might be making if you happen to be a Black trans woman. So you can imagine if we think about things like retirement, your long-term care, a rainy day that falls upon you, you're already at like a 40% disadvantage to other people, which is um, pretty concerning, right? If you're one of those individuals. So what we realized at the Gailey Impact was everyone needs financial education and literacy, but especially this part of the community needs it. So that's what a big part of our mission is, to get people the information they need to be successful with the money that they do have. So we lost Kim, and oh, here she comes back. Okay. Welcome back, Kim.
Sorry about that. So it made me log out and come back in.
All right.
And it's saying that you have to give me
Oh, we'll make
permission.
you the presenter. Okay. Yep.
I apologize for that.
No, no worries. I did
So,
my
and
spiel on really.
once I got out of it, in order to get back in, it had me take a survey.
Okay. All right. Are you able to share now? Yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's go to my screen. Can you all see my screen? It should say
Yes,
essentials.
we
Yes, we
can.
can see.
Okay, fantastic. So, financial literacy has been something that has been very important to me as well as Sharon Lechter for a very long time. And we've been able through WealthWave to really help people to, with a curriculum, with books, really been able to get the message out about teaching people how money works. And so the presentation that I'm going to do for you all tonight is just going to go over some basic things, 3 concepts and 7 money milestones. And because we're a little short on time, some of these things I'm going to quickly go through, but there's going to be an opportunity for you to meet with us at another time for kind of a one-on-one consultation. So the first thing, we want to encourage people to do is to think like the wealthy. Benjamin Franklin said an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And certainly understanding how money works is going to help you in so many ways. Helmut talked about whether you feel stressed about money or whether you're depressed about money. And understanding how money works and the things that you can do to help yourself and make more informed decisions is really going to help relieve that stress and hopefully alleviate any depression. Now, the word sucker isn't a word that we like to use, but if you don't know how money works, it will suck up your time, it will suck up your freedom, and certainly it's going to suck up your income. Now, a recent study on financial literacy found that only 30% of people in the world are financially literate. And what you see on the screen are some of the statistics for people in the United States. 44% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency. 43% of student loan borrowers aren't making payments. The average credit card debt balance is a little more than $9,000. And those households who carry that kind of debt, they're going to pay over $37,000 in interest over a 30-year period. And a third of Americans have zero retirement savings. One other statistic I'll share with you is that 78% of people in the US report that they're living paycheck to paycheck. And that is a very stressful way to live. I've lived that way. I'm a single mom. And so I've been on kind of that hamster wheel. And it is a very stressful way to live. Now, it's really not our fault. So we should give ourselves, some comfort in the fact that We weren't taught this in schools. We learned how money works from our parents who learned from their parents, or we learned from somebody else who helped raise us. And so it's not our fault that we are so uninformed. But this is a really great opportunity for us to change that trajectory. Now, we are all familiar with the sucker cycle. You get your paycheck, and then, money goes out for food, for ride shares. Maybe you have subscription services. My personal weakness is lattes. Maybe you enjoy yourself or you buy lottery tickets. Whatever it is, by the end of the pay cycle, you end up with little or no money to set aside for the future. And so we refer to that as the sucker cycle. So, what are some of the things that you can do to get out of the sucker cycle? And I'm going to put this on full screen mode. Great. So I hope you all see what I've been talking about a little bit bigger. So what I mentioned at the beginning is I'm going to go through 3 financial concepts and 7 money milestones. 3 and 7, that's all you've got to remember tonight. So the very first concept I'm going to talk about is the power of compound interest. And it's a fairly easy concept. It's interest earned on interest. Now, there are 2 different kinds of interest. There's simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is just interest earned on principal. Compound interest is interest earned on principal and the interest you've already earned. So let's look at some examples. This is a simple interest example. Over a 50-year period, if you started with $1,500 and it earned 9% a year, using a simple interest calculation, 9% of 1,500 in year 1, 9% of 1,500 in year 2, 9% of 1,500 in year 3, and so on. By the end of 50 years, your $1,500 would have grown to a whopping 8,250. But what if interest earned interest along the way? What would the impact of compound interest be? Well, it's huge. We're showing the same timeline, the same $1,500, the same assumption of a 9% interest rate, but instead of $8,250, you actually end up with more than $130,000. So you can see how over time, compound interest can be a big benefit to you. Now, the other thing that I'll say is compound interest can also be your enemy, especially when it comes to credit card debt. Because with credit card debt, when you just pay the minimum and you're not paying at least what the interest amount is, then you are being having to pay interest on interest. So compound interest can work against you, and credit cards are a really good example of how that happens. So let's look at a couple of different growth curves. So if you had $178 that you added each month from starting at age 25 and going all the way to age 67, if it was earning different interest rates, look at what the impact of the different interest rates compounded can be. So if your interest rate is $1,000 and you're setting aside that $178 every month, that ends up being more than $111,000. If your interest rate is $3,000, it's more than $179,000. If your interest rate is 6%, it's more than $404,000. And if your interest rate is 9%, it can be over $1 million. Now, in the examples I've just gone through, we've had an assumption of 9%. And I'll have clients tell me, Kim, where am I going to get 9%? Well, if you look at what the S&P 500 has done over the last 100 years, the average annual return of the S&P 500 is between 9 and 11%. So it's not impossible. Certainly you're going to have some down years, and you're going to have some way up years, and you're going to have some medium up years and some medium down years. but it averages out to be between 9 and 11%. Second concept I'm going to talk about, and that is the time value of money. And there are three things to keep in mind with the time value of money. Start now, save regularly, especially if you're earning compound interest, be patient. Those three things will help you set aside money for your future goals. Now, let's look at the example of Sarah and George. So Sarah, she was really good. She was all over it. She started saving when she was 22 years old. She put aside $4,000 a year. She did it in monthly increments of $333. She did that for 8 years in a row, and she stopped when she turned age 30. So if you look at Sarah's chart, she saved between 22 and age 30. She saved a total of $32,000 and over went and she stopped. But that 32,000 continued to earn interest until she turned age 67, and she had at that point $1.4 million. Now, let's look at the example of George. Now, George was a little bit of a late bloomer. He didn't start putting money aside until he turned age 30. But he did the same thing Sarah did. $4,000 a year, $333 a month. He did that for 38 years in a row, compared to just 8 years that Sarah did it. He stopped when he retired at age 67. He put a total of $151,998 in. But by the time he retired at age 67, he ended up with 1.3 million. Now, this example is to show you the power of setting money aside early, even if you have to stop along the way, or maybe stop and start along the way. Now, what George did, he was no shirker. I mean, he put that money aside every month, and he had 1.3 million when he was ready to retire. But it's much easier to follow Sarah's example than George's example. Now, how much would you need to set aside to have $1 million for your retirement at age 67? So if you're 20, it's a little bit of money, $113. If you're 30, it's a little bit more, $282 a month. If you're 40, it's a little bit more than that at $731. If you're in your 50s, it's more than $2,000 a month. And if you're in your 60s, it's more than $8,500 a month. So you can see what a great benefit is to be able to put a smaller amount aside when you're younger. Now, it's never too late. No matter what age you are, put money aside. No matter how much money it is, put money aside for your financial future. So you can start applying compound interest and the time value of money. So let's talk about kind of the realities of life these days, why time value of money is so important. You know, we are living longer, we're going to have medical bills, and we're going to need long-term care. So we need to be thinking about setting money aside for the future in order to take care of those things. So let's talk about the third financial concept. Compound interest, that was pretty easy. The time value of money, that was pretty easy, although it's hard to put in place. It's an easy concept to understand. The rule of 72 is the same thing, and this is the last concept that I'm going to talk to you about. And this is the only math that I'm going to make you all do. So 72 divided by the interest rate you're earning will give you the amount of time it will take for your money to double. 72 is a constant. It's called the rule of 72. So it's always 72 divided by the interest rate. So say you're earning 1% on your money. 72 divided by 1 is 72. It will take you 72 years for your money to double. Okay, what if you're earning more than 1%. Maybe you've got a CD. So maybe you're earning 3%. So 72 divided by 3 is 24. Your money is going to double every 24 years. So maybe you're earning a little bit more at 6%, a long-term CD or some other instrument that's going to guarantee you 6%. 72 divided by 6 is 12. Your money's going to double every 12 years. Maybe your money's in the market and you're earning the S&P average annual return of 9%. 72 divided by 9 is 8. Your money's going to double every 8 years. Or maybe you're earning 12%. 72 divided by 12 is 6 years. Your money's going to double every 6 years. Now, as I said before, compound interest can work for you or against you. And the rule of 72 is exactly the same way. It can work for you if you've got money saved up and it's earning a return. The rule of 72 is working in your favor. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people keep their money in a bank account and it's earning, I think the average bank account is paying somewhere around 0.15. It will take your money, if you divide that into 72, it will take you 480 years to double. Now, I think everyone should have money in their bank account, especially for their emergency fund, but for the money you're putting aside for your long-term financial goals, you need to find a better instrument, a better way to help your money grow than keeping it in a bank account and waiting 480 years, multiple generations of your family before they ever see a double. Now let's talk about how the rule of 72 works against you. The average credit card interest rate is now more than 22%. It's 22.44. So what's the bank earning on the money we borrow from them? 72 divided by 22.44 is 3.2 years. So my money in the bank is earning 0.15% and doubling every 480 years. But the money I borrow from the bank on a credit card, they are doubling their money every 3.2 years. So the rule of 72 is real important to understand when you're looking at how much money you have and trying to figure out, okay, how many doubles do I need to get? And so what interest rate do I need to be looking for in order to accomplish that? So we've gone through 3 financial concepts: compound interest, the time value of money, and the rule of 72. So I'm going to ask you all, and you can speak up, were you all already familiar with these concepts, especially the rule of 72?
I think I've heard of it before, but I don't think I knew it well enough to articulate it as you did, Kim.
Is it a surprise?
Yeah, it's really frustrating to know that, some money that I have had in a bank account for a very long time.
Yes,
But I
have you
knew the
seen the
interest rate was
bubble?
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a problem because when you need money and you have to get a loan or whatever, or if you use your credit card for whatever, it's just knowing that they're taking your money that's basically available and doubling it there in a very short time, but yet, the money that you have dormant in your account, which should be somewhere else. But
right.
just the interest rates have been poor, and CDs are not necessarily the solution either.
That's right. And the Fed is, you know, the consensus is that the Fed is going to start lowering interest rates again starting in September. And at that point, those, really nice rates that we're seeing on CDs and in money market accounts of, somewhere between 4 and 5.5%, those will also go down. So those opportunities we're seeing out there for some of our safe money will go away as interest rates come down, as the Fed lowers interest rates. So it becomes even more important to really understand how interest rates can work for you or against you. And is it simple interest or compound interest? And how much time do I have? All of those things are concepts that we need to keep in our mind when we're considering what we're going to invest in, how we're going to invest for our future. So now that we've talked about the three financial concepts, I'm going to talk about the seven money milestones. Now, these are the seven pillars, the seven components of a solid financial plan. And I'm going to go through these in a little bit more detail so you understand them. Now, for me, this is my checklist. So I like to, when I'm thinking about my financial plan, I do a checklist. Okay, where am I on protection? Where am I on cash flow? Where am I on debt management? And I would recommend everybody kind of do that mental checklist on themselves. And, some things are going to be more important than others, just depending on where you are in your life, in your career, with your family. But I would still do the mental checklist and cover all seven of them. And, certainly the first one, financial education, is what we're talking about today. It's part of this wonderful platform that Helmut has put together, understanding that financial education is such an important tool for so many things that we do in our lives, so many things that we want to accomplish in our life. So there is an original book. I wrote the women's book, but there's an original book, How Money Works Stopping a Sucker. And there is this class and some other classes that we teach in connection with the original book and in connection with the women's book. But the other thing that you might do is, collaborate with a financial professional to kind of help you put your plan together and help you execute on that plan. Financial professionals can be great, guides for how to navigate kind of what's happening in your life financially and what's happening outside of your life financially. How is the Fed changing interest rates going to affect me? That kind of thing. Now, the second milestone is proper protection, and this is protecting you and your family against the loss of income or a loss of savings. The rule of thumb for how much life insurance you need to have is 10 times your annual family income. So if you're earning $50,000 a year, theoretically you should have $500,000 in coverage. Or if you're earning $100,000 a year, you should technically have $1 million in coverage. But it all comes down to what you need for your particular situation. How old are you? What are your debts? Do you have a mortgage? What's your income that needs to be replaced? How is your health? The younger you are, the healthier you are, the less expensive your life insurance is going to be. How many people are depending on you? And if you're a business owner, what happens to that business or to your business partners if anything happens to you? So, life insurance is something that can address all of those things. But I like to kind of, when I'm talking to a client, talk to them about all of those factors in determining what's the right amount for them. Now, unfortunately, most people are underinsured. Most people underestimate how much life insurance they need and have a tendency to overestimate how much life insurance will cost. And it's real easy. I mean, you can go online and do, DIY yourself, try and figure out what a life insurance policy might cost. But working with a financial professional, they can also help you look at kind of what the options are for you, because there are all different kinds of life insurance out there. Now, the main two kinds of life insurance are temporary and permanent. Now, temporary life insurance is also called term insurance, and it is what its name says it is. It's for a term of period, a period of time, 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. Now, that is great when you're raising children and there's a period of time when you're going to have a bigger need to replace your income if something happens to you. You want to make sure your mortgage is paid off, your children are taken care of, they can go to college if that's what they want. But that's a period of time that term insurance is a really good um, type of insurance to put in place for, or for the term of your mortgage to make sure it's paid off when if something were to happen to you. You know, to pay for your kids or your grandkids to go to college, or we do key man insurance or other business insurance types like that to make sure that the business can continue operating even in your absence. But with term insurance, what happens when the term ends? Well, you may not need term insurance anymore, or you still need term insurance, and then it's more expensive because you're older and maybe you're not as healthy. And so those are things to keep in mind when you're purchasing term insurance or considering whether that's the right insurance for you. Now, the other kind of insurance is permanent insurance, and that's what it is. It's permanent. It's there for the rest of your life. The life insurance companies guarantee what your premium amount is. Now, with a lot of permanent life insurance policies today, they have these added benefits. In addition to providing a tax-free death benefit for your loved ones, you can also build a cash value inside that's going to give you access to tax-free money in retirement or for other financial goals you have. And there's also a lot of policies that include a long-term care rider. So you've got a source of funds to pay for your care needs. If you need to go in an assisted living, if you need to have a home health care worker, if you need to go into a nursing home, you've got a source of funds that's going to pay for that. Now, there are real great advantages to the cash value component, which is that free money that you can access for your financial goals, maybe to buy a car or to go on a dream vacation or to, pay for a wedding. Now, for me, I had my son. My son is 28, and he's getting married at the end of this year to a wonderful, wonderful young woman, Kristen. I made both of them get permanent life insurance policies now while they're young and healthy. And we're socking money away so that when they have my grandchildren, they will have a source of funds to help pay for their college education. But that cash value grows tax free. The cash value in life insurance policies is usually not accessible by creditors. Most policies do not expose you to the downside of the market, so there's zero market risk, although there is potential gain for upsides in the market. And again, you can access that cash for tax-free income. Now, let's talk about long-term care. It is so important that we think about long-term care because we are living longer. We're going to have more medical needs. I, help take care of my 86-year-old mom who can't do things by herself. So she didn't have long-term care insurance. So she's living with me. So I can help her with those things. But who's going to take care of me? I'm a single mom. I don't want my son to have to change his life to take care of me. Not that I changed my life to take care of my mom, and I love taking care of my mom, but I really want my son to have a lot of different options. And so long-term care insurance is really important for us to think about because it is expensive. So like the average long-term care needs, if it's more than a year, is 3.9 years. You can see on my screen what the annual median costs are for adult daycare, for an assisted living, for home health aid, for a nursing home, or for a private room in a nursing home. And then you can see what the average total cost would be over a 3.9 year period. So it can be expensive. I work with a lot of clients who set a lot of money aside in their 401ks, and the majority of that money, rather than going for things that are fun for them in retirement, they are paying for their long-term care needs. which is why I'm a big proponent of considering how am I going to cover long-term care. Now, the third milestone is emergency fund. Now, we all talk about this and we all plan for this, but not all of us do this or are able to do this. So it's about putting 3 to 6 months of your income aside for an emergency. Like, if the refrigerator breaks down, or you need new tires, or you've got to pay a deductible on your health insurance. If you're earning 50,000 a year, 3 months of income would be 12,500. 6 months would be 25,000. If you're earning 100,000, you should have between 25,000 and 50,000. Now, remember earlier I talked about the statistic of people living paycheck to paycheck. Who remembers what I said? How many people are living paycheck to paycheck?
70?
7%, something like that.
Yeah, it was 78%. Do you know the number one way to get out, stop living paycheck to paycheck is to create an emergency fund? Because if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you have no emergency fund and an emergency happens, as they inevitably do, what happens? You put it on a credit card or you borrow the money from somebody and you end up digging a hole for yourself that seems almost impossible to get out of. Now, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you can set aside $1 a day, $2 a day, $5 a day, one latte a day to save for your emergency fund, that's going to give you what you need to cover those emergencies over time without having to go more in debt and kind of making it almost impossible to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Now, the fourth milestone is debt management. And here are 5 tips on how to eliminate or stay out of debt. First of all, know what you owe. Know what your interest rate is, what the principal balance is, what the minimum payments are, and how long it's going to take you to get out of debt. And then make a commitment to yourself, no more late payments. First of all, it hurts your credit score. And if low credit score results in you having to pay higher interest rates. The other thing with late payments is you get those late charges, which is more money out of your pocket. And so set up auto pay or put alarms on your phone or your laptop. And then I recommend you target one debt at a time. Now, there are 2 philosophies on this. The first philosophy is to start with a credit card with the highest interest rate and work your way down. The second philosophy is to start with a credit card with the lowest balance and work your way up. I follow the second philosophy because you see the fruits of your labor much faster. Pay as much as you can on that low balance card. And then once it's paid off, take all of that money and apply it to the next low balance card, and so on until they're all paid off. And then stop charging. Don't cancel the cards because that will also lower your credit score by reducing the amount of available credit, but stop charging. And then look at your subscriptions. In my household, we've got Prime and Hulu, Peacock, and Netflix, and Paramount and Disney. And so look at all your subscriptions for video, for gaming, for music, and look at where are those opportunities to cancel something that you're not using or that maybe is overlapping or maybe you really don't need anymore. And then when interest rates come back down, as hopefully they will in September, maybe that's an opportunity to look at refinancing your mortgage. That's something I'm going to be looking at this fall. Now, the fifth milestone is cash flow. And there are a couple of ways, to look at cash flow. It is, the money coming
Mary, you have
in.
a question? Sorry.
I
Did
did.
you have a question?
That's okay.
Sure,
Yeah, I
go
did.
ahead.
I had a question. It was on your last screen when you said do not cancel.
Correct.
You have your credit card. You decide to not use it anymore. But I had heard, and I don't know if this is true, that if you indicate that it's canceled at the customer's request, that's different from just shutting it down. I mean, again, maybe you shouldn't close it at all. But if you have credit cards and so you may be looked at as having, oh, you got $30,000 access on this one, and you got 15,000 on that one, or whatever, and you have no intention of using it, but it just looks like that you have that kind of potentiality of going in and doing something irresponsible with it.
Oh, I know it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But it's because of what the denominator is. The lenders look at what is the ratio, and the denominator is the amount of available credit. The numerator is the amount the amount of debt you have, and the denominator is what's the total potential debt you could have. And so if you lower that denominator, then it throws the ratio off for because all of credit scores are a result of algorithms that are run that look at different mathematical components, and that's among them. And so, while certainly closing a credit card account at your request is going to look more favorable if somebody is reviewing your credit report for purposes of your credit score, it's it will have the same impact on the denominator. And so that's why I recommend not closing the account and just not using the card anymore. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. So, in looking at cash flow, you're looking at what money is coming into your household and what money is coming out. There are two ways to look at increasing your cash flow. That's either increasing the amount of money that's coming in or decreasing the amount of money that's going out. So, if you're looking at the decreasing part, what are some of the things that we can do? Well, you can create a budget and stick to it. Now, I hate the word budget. For me, the word budget's like the word diet. So I call it my spending plan. So come up with your spending plan. Understand what your fixed and variable expenses are and kind of map that out and, really stick to your plan. Now, also, I would develop a written game plan for how you're going to spend less and save more. Whether it's for me, it's not spending $5 a day on a latte and instead saving that $5 a day for my future. Now, there are also opportunities to save on your car and homeowners insurance. Do the shopping. These are commodity products now. Go online and do some research. But also, you can play with the amount of the deductible or the amount of the coverage to get your costs down. And then reposition your savings. Consider the rule of 72 and whether you've got your savings in the right place. Now, again, some of it should be in the bank, maybe your emergency fund, but some of it that you're saving for the future should be invested somewhere that's going to give you a higher interest rate and the opportunity for more doubles. And then if you do have private mortgage insurance, is there an opportunity to pay down the principal on your mortgage or to refinance to get rid of that PMI? Now, ways to increase your cash flow, add a side gig or maybe start a business. This is a great time to start a new business with technology, with what's available on the internet, with how most people are working remotely. Starting a business has really never been easier. Or if you are a W-2 employee, look at what your allowances are, and maybe there's an opportunity there to bring more money into your household. Now, the sixth milestone is building wealth, and this is the fun milestone because this is where you get to plan for your future goals. One of those goals should be your retirement. Your wealth has got to last as long as you do. And so many of us don't have pensions anymore. Social Security isn't going to cover everything we need in our retirement. So we really need to be thinking about saving for our retirement. And a lot of people have a big fear that they're going to run out of money in retirement. In fact, they're more afraid of that than dying. Now, there are 4 threats to building wealth: procrastination, losses, inflation, and taxes. Procrastination is our favorite form of self sabotage. And so I recommend again, kind of what we talked about when we talked about the time value of money. Start now, save a little, and just be patient. And then the impact of inflation. We have really felt that in the past 18 months because inflation has had such a huge impact on our pocketbooks. And if you apply this rule of 72 to inflation, now what it has been, a year ago, it was like 8%. And we know 72 divided by 8 is 9. So we know that our the cost of goods is going up every 9 years if inflation stays at 8%. Now, the average inflation is at 2.8, and that's kind of what the Fed has been targeting. So 72 divided by 2.8 is 25.7 years. So the cost of goods will double at least every 25.7 years. And so we have to understand how inflation, especially if you're younger and you've got more than 25 years until retirement, you've got to take that the doubling of the cost of things into account when you're saving for retirement. And then let's look at the impact of losses. If you lose 50% in a $10,000 investment, what do you need in order to get back to $10,000? Well, a lot of people will say, oh, I need to get 50% back. That's not true. You need to get 100%. Now, I don't know many money managers that can get a 50% gain in 1 year. I don't know any money managers that can get 100% gain in 1 year. So losses can have a huge impact on our ability to build wealth, especially if you are close to retirement and you are experiencing those losses in that time frame because you don't have a lot of runway to catch up. And then there's, of course, the impact of taxes. We want to have a better understanding of taxes so we know what we can keep in retirement, what we have to pay to the government, and whether there's going to be an opportunity to create generational wealth for children or grandchildren, nieces or nephews. Now, there are 3 ways that you can be taxed. You can be taxed now, like on interest you earn on your bank account or money markets, your earnings. If you are working in a business or you're an employee, your earnings are taxed now, income taxes, or taxed later, where this is where taxes are deferred until a later date. You see this with IRA money, with 401k money, with those kinds of qualified plans that are not charging interest now or not charging taxes now, but when you start taking distributions, you will be taxed on the full amount. Or you can look at what is taxed never. Now, there are a couple of things that are taxed never. Roth IRAs are an example. Certainly, the amount you deposit into a Roth has already been taxed. It's income that's been taxed. But all of the growth inside the Roth is tax-free. And when you take distributions from a Roth IRA, it's tax-free. The same thing with a Roth 401k. Municipal bonds are another example. And permanent life insurance, that cash value I talked about a little bit ago, that's also tax never. So those are the kind of things that you're going to want to think about. Do I have those kinds of vehicles in my retirement so I'm not tax the kingdom come when I'm in my 60s, 70s, and 80s? Now, one of the questions that we ask clients is, do you want to be taxed now? Do you want to be taxed on the seed? Or do you want to be taxed on the harvest? If you're taxed on the seed, that's like a Roth IRA or permanent life insurance. Or do you want to be taxed on the harvest? And that's like 401k money or IRA money. So be thinking about that. Now, certainly, any way that you could put money aside for the future is great, no matter when it's going to be taxed. But keeping that in mind when it is going to be taxed is really a smart thing to do. And then the last thing to keep in mind is protecting your wealth. And that's having the estate planning documents in place to take care of your family. Now, Prince, when he died, Aretha Franklin died, neither one of them had an estate plan in place. And so their families, their heirs, really suffered by that lack of planning. Now, there are four basic documents to have: a will, a financial power of attorney, an advanced healthcare directive, and a HIPAA release. And I'm not, because we're short on time, I'm not going to go into what each one of those documents does. But if you read the book, you'll get a lot more information. Or if you schedule a one on one with me, I can answer all your questions. Now, probate is a process for administering your estate. It's if whether you have a will or not, but probate is much more difficult and much more expensive if you do not have a will. And the court will decide how your estate gets distributed if you have not identified how you want it, what you want to have happen in a will. Now, the last document is a trust. Now, this is an optional document you can have, and there are different reasons why you might need a trust. I'm not going to go into them right now, but that is another potential estate planning document. Now, many people think that estate planning is going to be way too expensive or time consuming. It does require a little bit of thought, but there are a lot of options out there for no matter what budget you have. In addition to being a financial literacy advocate, a financial professional, and an author, I'm also an attorney and I help clients in the state of Georgia with a lot of estate planning. But I answer estate planning questions all around the country. So I'm going to turn it back over to Helmut, if I can.
Yeah, we can just leave the screen up, or you're gonna pop out, right, Kim? You have to go. So I want to thank you, Kim, and thank you all for listening in. That is effectively those three lessons, and then the 7 money milestones are what we learn in this session, and some of it can be a lot, right? I just sit here and I have gone through this material several times before, but there's a lot of things to think about, and as you have questions. We're going to make this recording available to you so you can get that digitally. We'll send that to you in email. As mentioned, the book is an option for deeper dive into this material as well. And I'll send information on that as well. And then finally, if you desire to actually go through, I'm going to send a copy of the worksheet, a digital copy of that worksheet that she had. It's a very nice kind of layout to kind of ask yourself the questions and lay out your own plans. And then if you want to opt into a complimentary 30-minute session, just go through your own money with someone who knows and can consult you specifically. It won't then be as generic. It can be very specific to questions you have. That is something that is available. Okay.
Helmut, if I could interrupt you for a second, I am unfortunately not able to escape and get out of the program. And so if you could maybe stop making me the presenter, maybe,
Sure.
or I apologize.
I think I will dismiss you, and I think we may then see your thing. So thank you, Kim. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. It's been wonderful spending time with you, and I look forward to meeting with you all in the future.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Kim.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay,
Bye.
so I had let her exit. We still have the recording on. So you guys have any questions while we're here? Otherwise, we will conclude.